Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
Hello everyone and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest at the top of the hour is Mindy Miralia, author of The Hero in Heroin. She shares her extraordinary journey. Mindy shows how to find meaning and transformation even in the worst situations. Get her amazing book today at theheroinheroin.com, or to find out more about Mindy, her workshops, or have her come speak for you at mindymiralia.com. In the second half of our hour, we're joined by Emi Kirschner, certified holistic health coach on the importance of healthy eating for successful life and business. She shows how to eat healthy on any budget. Charismatic health coach Emi Kirschner inspires and guides entrepreneurs and key executives to finally achieve a permanent sense of well-being and mindfulness that will enhance their health, their business, and their life. Find out more about Emi at emikirschner.com. Hi, Mindy. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm great, Christine. Thank you for having me.
I'm really happy to have you out here today. You've had an incredible journey, a very personal journey that led you to writing your book that just has come out, The Hero in Heroin, a mother and son's journey on both sides of the veil. Very fascinating. Share with our audience a little bit about your journey and what led you to writing your book.
The title says a lot, The Hero in Heroin. I'll start with the end and work backwards. My son turned out to be a heroin addict who took his life 4 years ago. And as a mother who was told that she could have no children, or a woman, I'll say, who was told she could have no children, to in the beginning have a child, which turned out to be an absolute miracle, journey in this physical world together, living internationally and just having different positive, just very fun experiences in life, and being tight and close as a parent-child through the addiction process, which started when he was about 15. I'll say the drug started at about 15. I feel like it was probably 3 years later when it really started to turn into more of an addiction. And then when he made the choice to do heroin, which was sometime in the early 2000s, I think he lasted about 7 years from the time he first did it that I'm aware of to the time he died. So the book is about that journey, which is highs, lows, ups, downs, laugh, cry, but very much just an authentic life story.
And what in going through this very personal story with your son, what prompted you to say, hey, this is something I should put into a book?
I was prompted to put it into a book because his ashes sit on my bookcase in my office, and all I hear seems like is about the problem with heroin in the United States. And I looked at those ashes one day and his pictures, and I thought, this journey can't be for nothing. He had come back in spirit form about 3 weeks after he had died in his first, what I will call his first attempt to reach out or communicate from the other side. And that ensued for a few years. And then I kept notes. I just kept notes. And then one day I thought, this is happening for a purpose. And he intimated to me that purpose was to share the parts of what we worked on with his addiction, the parts that we missed, share those with others. And he said, Mom, you've got to do this. So that's what led to ultimately writing the book. It was never on my life punch list to do a book like this.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, I mean, because most of our audience are women, and 70% of them, and a lot of them are women who have teenage kids
Mm-hmm.
that might be dealing with just this issue. Even last year, we did have someone come on who had just written a book. It was not related to drugs, but she did have a son that she started to talk about a very personal issue of dealing with drugs over a period of time. And it's a very shameful and, how should you say it, guilt-ridden thing as a parent, because you feel like somehow I must have failed. And so I'm hoping a lot of parents will listen to your story and feel this inspiration that it's not over. This doesn't mean I'm a bad parent. What is your hope that people will take away from reading your book?
My comment on that, and it might sound a little cliche, but good parenting cannot stop it, and bad parenting does not cause it. And that's the biggest message I have for any parent out there. And I went through something very similar, like, oh gosh, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong as a parent that caused my child to turn out to make the choice to do drugs? And I learned over time and over my journey, and even from him coming back, and the messages that he gave were, Mom, every soul is responsible for their own journey. It is very disrespectful to have pity on another soul for what it is going through. And I was like, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah,
Very
indeed.
powerful.
Indeed, because sometimes we make it about ourselves, and we have our each individual journeys. It's not about the other. It's about each individual journey and going on your own path, whatever it might be, good, bad, or ugly, because we'll all go through our trials and tribulations at times.
Oh, yes, yeah. We're here to learn. We're here to expand. We're here to grow. And I say to support one another on the path without judging another.
Yeah. Are there signs, I mean, were there signs that you look back on now that you said, I wish I had seen it then, or signs that you could point out to parents who are listening in, like if they have teenage kids or even younger kids that they think might be on drugs but they're not quite sure to watch out for?
I would be on the lookout for any kind of weird paraphernalia that's in the house or that you come across, a parent might come across. I found something that my son had put in the place where we put the towels in the bathroom. So it was just a linen closet, I guess. And there was something in there that was wrapped up in plastic that just looked abnormal. It just didn't look like anything that I'd ever seen before. So I would suggest to parents to keep a lookout for those physical signs. I feel like at a mom-child connection level, I felt almost exactly when he pulled away and made the decision to do that, which I write about in my book. It got me at my core, and I felt like I began a battle for my child at that point. But those are things that I would suggest for young people and for parents to be just on the lookout for those kinds of things which are physical in that sense. And then oftentimes the kids have a very good way of hiding pretty serious drug usage behind making straight A's or being a participant in the football team or the baseball team. They can hide it for a period of time. So just keep your eye peeled and let your heart help you to discern.
Yeah. Actually, growing up, some of my close family members also dealt with serious drug issues. And for any parents listening in who suspect or have a suspicion that their kids might be doing drugs, what would be your first advice to them? Because I'm thinking it's hard to dive in and just start screaming your head off and be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Let me stop you now. I mean, what's the best approach for a parent to go about in this situation?
Well, the first thing that I would say is to face it. It's going to be a shock, and it's going to be like a shock wave, because none of us ever think our little Johnny or little Jane would ever do that. So the first thing I would say would be to face it, accept it, and talk to them. Give yourself time to let the emotion and the shock of what you've discovered to subside a bit, so that they can hear what you are saying, and don't take it personally. And most of all, don't deny it. Don't deny it. Most people that I come across and many that I work with are in denial. That parents do not want to accept that it is a problem. It's like, oh, they're only doing it a couple of times, or oh, okay, well, it's acceptable, and it isn't. It isn't.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned accept it, don't deny it, because even on a less serious front, a number of years ago, I had a very close friend that I lived with for a while, and I always told her children they're more than welcome to come on down to my house and help themselves to everything in my refrigerator. But one day during the weekend, they had come over to my house, and they made pretty much a big mess, just going through the refrigerator, eating a bunch of stuff, and just leaving it about and making a mess in the living room. And I have no problem with them having fun and eating up what they want in my house because I gave them free reign. The only thing that was bothering me a little bit is the mess. So I told the mother, can you just make sure that, Sammy, David, whatever, just clean up after themselves and it's all good. And of course, parents tend to see things as, oh, okay, my kid's a bad kid if they didn't do something right. So she immediately said, well, my kid would never leave a mess. They would never do something like that. It's not in their nature. They would never do that. You're lying. A thief must have broken into our house, and we got to look into that, because now it's just like, oh, yeah, right. You broke in, you ate some chocolate cake and left.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a problem that I think parents go through sometimes, but just not looking at the fact, because I think really it's that they don't want to see that it could be looked upon as them being a bad parent. So even if they start to notice something that's out of sorts, where do they go from as far as approaching their child? Because I'm guessing their child is going to just straight out tell them this is not true or whatever. How do they go about getting help to start to fix the problem?
I will honestly say that an honest dialogue and an honest conversation with a child is it. And to have that conversation, let them know what your suspicions are. Yes, they're going to get mad. However, give them a window. Give them a little window to show you that, yes, I am doing this, or no, I'm not, because it won't be long before there's a mess up in there somewhere. And then obviously, in the meantime, reach out to the various services that are available. I know for me, there's a lot more available today than there were back when I was dealing with this a lot. There's the AA programs, the Anon programs, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, as a place to just go and listen, and to listen to what other people are going through and see how much that lines up to your own case. I would also suggest talking perhaps to a counselor or a healer and get situation-specific guidance for that specific child case incident. I think each one is going to be a bit different based on the dynamic of the family.
Yeah, and you mentioned something before, to really listen to your kid and listen for the signs, because I had a very close family member that trusted me, and when she was a teenager, she got herself pregnant, and she didn't come and tell her parents. She came straight to me, and instead of doing what she'd hoped, which is an adult, to listen to her and give her some sound advice, I flipped out and said, what the heck were you thinking? Have you lost your mind? And screamed and hollered, and because I saw her like you did, a great kid who is always getting A's and really responsible, and how could she screw up her life like this? And I was the one adult she thought she could trust. So I ruined that trust at that moment out of fear. So I think it's really, really, good thing to remember, just no matter how scared you are or fearful you are, just to really stay clear and try to really listen from non-anger.
I agree. I agree, because what we do when we do that, that's why I have my own little mantra in life now. Anything that charges me, and when I say charge, it's usually an emotional charge, I give myself 3 days before I deal with it. Because if I don't allow it time to diffuse and calm down, I cannot speak from the highest place of love and lack of judgment. I want to be able to speak from a place of neutrality and not put down another person, and not try to lift myself up as being holier than thou. You've heard the adage of there's two sides to a fence, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I usually image that in my mind, and I try to raise up to be about right in the middle and try to speak from that spot. I don't care how severe the challenge is, or the situation, or how much somebody else might want to I want to say fire back. You can't communicate with someone when they're in that space. So just make an agreement to talk to them tomorrow at 4:00 in the afternoon or whatever works. And that in and of itself will diffuse the situation. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I wished I had handled that situation way back differently. But it's a great piece of advice, just to really step back, give yourself time to breathe, and get over your own anger or whatever fear you're going through, so you can sort it out. Now, your book also really touched upon how you really were trying to help your son through many different avenues, through even Eastern medicine, Western medicine, and spirituality and such. Do you ever feel that addictions per se are really part of maybe a spiritual disconnection of some sort?
I feel they're part of a spiritual disempowerment, and I feel like it is a disconnection to our spiritual nature. In other words, our lack of knowing who we truly are, that God created us to be, that causes that disconnection. And specifically with people that do drugs, they're looking for that connection for the most part.
Yeah.
And so that's where I feel that it comes from. And if we think about it, in my own case, my son was 15 years old when he made the decision to do it. And as a human, as we are developing, and for guys especially, girls develop a little bit earlier, but it is up to age 23, 24 before the frontal lobe of a male's brain is developed.
Wow.
So if they don't know, and if they don't have an awareness of their spiritual nature, the limitlessness of how we are really created, then they don't have that capacity to really understand how to make a decision. Does that make sense? And so that's one of the things that I have seen in my years of dealing with this, and in being around rehab facilities and other parents, and just the work that I do today.
Yeah, and I can totally see that. And I wonder, Mindy, if also our modern life being so on fast forward, with TV and moving, grooving so fast, and texting and internet and Facebook and all that, I wonder if that kind of also helps to kind of further disconnect us from ourselves, each other, and from our spirits.
I feel that it does, because we want an instantaneous fix. And when we do this work to learn more about who we are, I used the word work. It is work. We can't take a pill to discover who we really are at our core. And some people will try, perhaps, by doing drugs. Others will get on pathways, journeys. Some do it through yoga, some through other ways, meditation, transcendental meditation. Just taking time out every day to be still and quiet is a way. But it's something that I really don't think that we do as we could be doing.
That's fascinating. We had a guy on last year who created a film. He's a doctor, and he was really kind of unhappy at the fact that so many people would come into his practice, patients, and demand medication, even if he felt they didn't need it. And it's kind of like our society, and we're kind of conditioned this way by the medical establishment and our society, that, hey, you got a problem, you got a pain, just take a pill, it's all over, it's all better. And he said even as doctors, we're very, very tempted if a patient is complaining, just to shut them up with a pill, and it becomes a problem, because then we're all conditioned with, oh, you got a problem, take a pill. Or even in the way of, like we were talking about social media, one comedian had mentioned, I think it's C.K. Lewis had mentioned that Facebook and a lot of the social media stuff is only derived and used so much as our fix and addiction to want to get the instant appreciation and love of people online, because when we get a like or someone who says stuff to us online, it feels like they're liking us, they're friending us, but it's really fake. It's looking for friendship or close bonds in a quick fix way.
I agree, and that's another one of the connections. Instead of looking for our connection to ourselves, we continually look for our connection and who and what we are from outside of us. And that's another, especially in teenage adolescence, that is huge, because that particular time period of a human being's life is one where they're breaking away from a parent or parents into, well, who am I? What am I going to be? What am I doing? And am I tall enough, thin enough, pretty enough, got the right color hair, the right shape, or whatever? And it is in that case, too, where we're longing for a connection, but we're looking outward for outside others to tell us who we are. And it's backwards. It's just backwards. And so that is one of the things that I think the social media, I mean, I feel like there's some things with social media that are very good, that are there, that can work and that can help people in the event of some accident or crisis or things like that. But just on a daily basis to have to go spend, I think it was 45 minutes a day or something like that is what I heard the average person spends on Facebook. We just have to turn around and look at ourselves like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, you're so right. And even before Facebook came around, Twitter and all those other social media sites, we would do it in our relationships. Like we would find, I know about me in my 20s, it was all about finding Prince Charming.
Exactly.
So for any persons out there who actually is dealing with an addiction, how do they even begin to heal themselves from the attachment that they have from the drugs?
Well, a lot of that is, first of all, having the awareness that there may be some attachment present. And many of them aren't aware of that. So having an awareness of that, I would say reaching out again to whatever their local facilities are. I know it was just earlier this month that the White House has now gotten the attention, or this heroin epidemic has gotten the attention of the White House, and there are actually strategies that are being executed, particularly along the East Coast, where it's pretty rampant over here. And there will be opportunities for people to get, I want to call it help or healing, that they weren't able to before. So I say reach out. And this drug in and of itself is so addictive. It's a battle. It's not a one time and you can quit. It's a one time and you can become seriously addicted and can't get away from it. One thing that my son said to me is, Mom, the only thing that I could never stop when I wanted to was heroin. So it had him. And there are places, there are different types of places all over the nation. I know here in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I live, we have a fabulous facility called the Charlotte Rescue Mission, which is a Christian-based facility, no charge, there's a group for women and a group for men. They offer a 90-day program, and they're full constantly. There's other outpatient places that I would suggest, and for those that are really strung out on heroin that want help, I would encourage them to reach out to the methadone clinics and start working a step-down program. And usually by going to a place like that, there's doctors and other professionals that are there that can help them to get into what I'm going to call it the system is, to be able to help.
Now, I'm thinking a lot of these programs are not only just physical components that they work with, but help you on the psychological and spiritual arena as well, because I'm guessing that if you just were to remove the physical part and just give you some methadone, that's not healing the part that even got you there in the first place, that wanting to take the drug, that is.
Right. And the thing about it is, when someone is in active addiction, it's hard to reach certain parts. So what one has to do is get clean. And once someone is cleaned from doing the drug and they're settled down, because their neurobiology is just on hypersensitive alert. It takes time for them to be able to calm down. A lot of them will just shake, not be able to stop shaking after they are clean. And I mean clean for a while. And then the beginning of working on some of those psychospiritual issues can begin. And I would say never give up hope. because just with my son, he constantly relapsed and recovered, relapsed and recovered, relapsed and recovered. And in those times of recovery, he learned things. He learned a lot of things. He learned a lot about himself. And in his case, he lost the battle. He just lost the battle.
And Mindy, what was it, because from your perspective, the book was really awesome because it wrote from both your son's perspective and your perspective as a mother or parent's perspective. Now, this is one that's often not thought about. When you're going through turmoil, often it's looked at, okay, what is the person going through the addiction going through? But what is it also like for the family members, the mother, the sisters, also going through the addiction? Tell us a little bit about, for you, how did you cope with going through the turmoil of addiction?
I learned how to take care of myself. I never knew how to do that before because as a mother, I was always taught and conditioned to take care of my child. So when the addiction really kicked in and it got bad, the only way I could really manage is strengthening my connection to God, asking God to hold me no matter what, and learning to take care of myself. And it was a very long journey. It was very challenging. We had times where we would have a year or more in recovery. There were times in the early days where there may be a year that I didn't even know where he was, dead or alive. So it was that gamut, that roller coaster, that just oscillation there between those two ends that I experienced and went through, that if I didn't do all that I had done, which was to learn everything I could learn about addiction, look at myself in the mirror, what I could do differently. I can't change the past, but I can certainly change from this moment forward. And I studied just about everything that I could find that was alternative to the way we have traditional psychology, counselors, psychiatrists, and the way addiction was looked at. Because I kept feeling that there was more and I wasn't getting those answers. So that helped me also through my own studies and my own growth and expansion in helping to heal addiction, which is why I'm still in it today. Many people have said to me, Mindy, your son is gone and here you are, you're still out there trying to help people. And I said, well, I want to.
Yeah. And you had said, though, through going through the journey and discovering different methods and methodologies and alternative ideals of how to deal with it, what is the one thing you came away with that is done maybe not in our Western society that would be beneficial, if that could be brought into Western idea and thought to deal with addiction?
The spirit attachment implications. And spirit attachment is simply another, I'm going to say, a body of consciousness, because when we die, when we exit our physical body, we keep going. We don't stop. We're just not in form. We're in a spirit form. And I call it a consciousness body because it's a lot easier to get into the head pictorially. And so a lot of these souls that die in addiction get hung when they die. They don't go on. They don't move. And so they don't really realize they die in what I call addiction consciousness. They don't know if they are in the big trip. They don't know if the beings that are over there that are trying to help them are just jokesters. They don't get it. And so what happens is oftentimes they will just, or they may even be afraid that if I go with those beings, I'll go to hell, depending on their belief system. So rather than go to hell, they'll stay where they are, or they will turn and go back to what they are energetically attracted to, which is another addict.
Wow. And do you think that they kind of become stuck, though, in that kind of limbo sort of, that's just a word I came up with, it's not a proper word, of sorts, because they haven't completed what they came here to do? Or is that just me,
No, I feel like they can get hung there for many different reasons, and that's where some of the work with the people that I have done work with can get in there and communicate with that soul, because it is a soul.
Yeah.
And it's kind of lost in a way. And once it realizes that it is dead and that it does need to go on and that there are beings there to help it, it often will just what I call release and go on. But sometimes they can get stuck. There's one incident that I had, it's been 7 years ago now, where there was a house that I went to look at to buy after my husband and I married, and there was a spirit stuck in that house. And I had never had that kind of an experience before, but it got my attention. And of all the people that had been around that house or been through that house, no one it could not get anyone else's attention. And so it was one of my first experiences with something like that. And so the owner of the house, I had to ask a question about if something happened in that house because of what I experienced. And it come to find out it was her brother, and her brother had taken his life in that house right near the area where I could see what was going on. And he had been there 10 years before I even came along.
And was the sister or the people able to commune and get the soul to understand that it was time to move on, or?
I did that with other healers, and we helped him to move. We helped him to move on. And then she contacted me later and said, Mindy, that whole house feels differently. And when I go over there, I don't hear the sounds in there that I used to hear. I'm not afraid to go there anymore.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, this has been very enlightening. I know you helped a lot of parents listening in today that might be feeling turmoil or cautious, or maybe even going through addiction right now with their children. And please let everyone know where they can find out more about your book and more about you.
To find out more about me, visit Mindy Miralia, MindyMiralia.com. And to find out more about the book, you can visit The Hero, Heroin, Heroin, Heroin.com. You can access it from Mindy Miralia's site. If you're interested in purchasing the book, it is available in 25,000 locations worldwide.
Wow.
You can get it on Amazon. Get it on Barnes & Noble. Order it from a local bookstore. From my publisher, Balboa Press. So the book is available in hardcover, softcover, and ebook, so it can be downloaded also. And I would say I would love to hear from the readers and the audience, very much so.
Well, I thank you so much. Everyone, please go get The Hero in Heroin. And before we head on out, Mindy, please share with the audience one last takeaway or lesson you most gained from your journey.
The greatest lesson that I gained from my journey is unconditional love. And that I strive every day to live in a place of unconditional love. And love has nothing to do with the emotion of love, but dealing through what I went through and dealing with my addict, I have to say that that is the greatest gift that my addict gave me, was my experience of unconditional love is where healing occurs.
Fabulous, fabulous way to end. I thank you so much, Mindy, for coming to share your very awesome journey with us and being so open to sharing with our audience. Thank you so much for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.
Hi, Emi. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really happy to have you. We had a fabulous conversation a while back, and you are doing wonderful work in the world, helping people get full health and wellness in their lives. Tell us more about your journey and what led you to working as a certified holistic health coach, and in particular, working with entrepreneurs.
Sure. My journey actually started 16 years ago with my oldest son. And he was having digestive problems, and we had taken him. He was about a little over a year, and we had taken him to the doctor, and they'd run tests, and we were seeing specialists. And they ran more tests, and they didn't know what to do. None of the tests were showing anything conclusive. And the last pediatric gastroenterologist that we saw said to me, just give him some more olive oil so that he doesn't lose any more weight, because it slows down his digestion a little bit. And, it's bye-bye, and I was like, oh, thanks. But and as not helpful as that was, it was really the catalyst for me to start reading all the food labels with everything that we were eating, and really to start reading about nutrition and what was going to help. And over the next year, through a lot of trial and error, but with all of kind of my self-education, I learned a lot, and I was able to help my older son, Brian.
Well, I'm sure many parents, because a good portion of our audience are women, entrepreneurs with children, and so I know they're going to be able to relate to you. And more I hear people having gastrointestinal issues, and it's not just kids, it's adults. I mean, over 30 and 40, everyone I know seems to have issues with their health. And I myself, it's interesting, just about 3 weeks ago, I'm having a doctor come on soon, and he's going to talk about how grain in particular really messes with people's systems. And I've been having a lot of bloatiness and uncomfortable